to chat whenever you like. So, good morning, everybody. This is our philosophy yoga class. And this morning we'll be focusing on some of the themes that came out of the planets lecture on Sunday night. So, if you participate in that course, some of these ideas will be kind of drawn from that lecture. If you're not participating in that course, this class will be kind of interesting because it's about rebirth, it's about coming out from the earth. And that's kind of something that we'll be looking at doing as we approach spring. It will come, spring is going to come. And one of the energies that will inspire us this morning is the energy of Lakshmi. So I brought my picture. This hangs on my wall. Can you see her there? Our beautiful Lakshmi. She's one of the deities from yoga philosophy, and she's often referred to as the goddess of abundance. So you can see her vehicle is a beautiful swan. She has the colors of red and gold, colors of opulence and abundance, and she's got multiple gifts. So we're going to use the energy of Lakshmi this morning to kind of inspire our own growth. So before we come into practice, know we might want to use a strap today or a yoga tie if you have that. Got one more person floating in here. And also, if you prefer to use a chair to support you for postures, you'll want to have that handy. It's a fairly active class today. So before we get into our movement, you might just come to a comfortable seat. That might be sitting on your chair or sitting up on some blankets or bolsters or pillows. Close your eyes if you like, if that helps you to focus on my words a little bit more. Focus on your own breath a little bit more. So when we use a deity like Lakshmi to inspire our practice and we look to connect to abundance, what I'm going to suggest to you is you already possess a lot of abundance. We often see the lack in our lives and tend to focus on that. And we're hardwired as human beings to do that because it's a survival skill. Our ancestors, when our nervous systems and our bodies were evolving, never had enough. They always had to be on the lookout for more because there was a scarcity, and survival was hard. Now our lives are very, very different. We don't have scarcity. Survival is much more achievable. And so we have abundance. We have to kind of retrain ourselves as a modern human to see life in a little bit different way, that we have abundance, that we have enough. So sitting here before we grab the movement of the practice, see if you can find some stillness and rest in this idea of abundance, of the gifts that you already are blessed with, that surround you right now. A warm, comfortable home, yoga props to play with, the blessing of friendship and technology to share it in these trying times. Look at the abundance we have right in this moment. You also have an abundance of strength and health and intelligence, even though maybe you don't like your body right now. Maybe, it gained weight over the holidays or whatever. The thing is you do have an abundance of health right now, which is a wonderful blessing. So the abundance that Lakshmi can bring to us is not necessarily winning the lottery. The abundance that Lakshmi can help us understand is to appreciate the gifts that we already have, to bring a sense of abundance to our lives, a gratitude and gratefulness for the abundance that we already possess. And I think that's Lakshmi's greatest gift, is this idea that we don't have to go and grasp and grab and pull in, that Lakshmi encourages us to stop, breathe, and rest on our swans and be surrounded by our beautiful colors, beautiful possessions, and beautiful gifts. And if we can, as we start to come into movement this morning, bring those kind of ideas with us, that we are already in abundance. Our movements today are a celebration of our gifts that we already possess. Take a couple deep breaths, establishing a nice rhythmic, full breath. And then let's come to stand in our mountain pose. So as we come to our first mountain pose, take your place and come into a full deep breath, maybe a touch of ujjayi at the throat, if you're familiar with that practice. Ujjayi breath is a breath that you close the glottis ever so slightly, so there's a bit of sensation as the air moves through the throat, maybe a tiny bit of sound. So this is just a breath that prepares you for an active yoga practice, gets you a little bit more grounded into the body. So when you came to be, when the abundance of your life was developing in your mummy's tummy, your soul was incarnating. At that point, the spiritual energy that infuses your body right now became constrained by time and place. You became a body, you became a physical entity. 365 days a year, so many years, this is our reality. A tyranny of time, you might call it. Yoga as a practice allows us to break out of the constraints of time for a brief practice period. Often I find that the passage of time feels differently while I'm practicing yoga. And also we connect to something beyond the physical energy of the body. At least I think we do. I think we touch base with that soul energy, that spiritual energy that originally chose to incarnate into our body. So through our practices, we're going to work to reconnect with the timelessness and a potential beyond the physical constraints of time and space, even of what you're seeing on your computer screen right now as you watch my body work. So we're going to start by acknowledging the physical shell of the body, and then we're going to move a little bit deeper as we practice today. Let's start by lifting the toes, wiggling the toes away from the floor, fanning the toes out, and then gathering the toes down to kind of try to pull up the mat like a kitten would paw at her bed. Roll onto the outside edges of your feet and the inside edges of your feet, massaging your feet laterally or widthwise into the floor. Then roll onto the balls of the feet, back onto the heels as you try to massage the length of your feet. Let's lift one foot, roll the ankle joint in both directions, and also pump the knee joint a couple times. So just nodding to the strength and abilities of that leg. Again, we'll do the same thing with the other leg, not needing to rush through these movements. Time and space kind of cease to have their lordship over us as we come into our yoga practice. Let's do the same thing with our fingers, making fists and stretching, rolling the wrists in both directions, pumping the elbows a couple times. I'm going to come into table pose now. You may choose to do table pose with a chair. That's the way I'm going to do it today. If you're comfortable with your knees on the ground, then go to the table pose with knees on the ground. Bring the legs quite close together. And inhale here. As you exhale, dip the hips over towards the right. Inhale, come back to center, and exhale, dip your hips over towards the left. Dip your hips, that's a fun thing to say. Try to keep your shoulders over your wrists, your legs and your arms fairly straight, although the elbows and knees are slightly unlocked. Let's go to each side one more time. And then we'll come back to table pose. Separate the knees or the feet, hip distance apart. On your next inhale, stretch the right leg up behind you. Exhale, draw the knee into the chest. Moving back and forth a couple more times. Working into the knee, or into the hip joint, into the hip joint. Good. Let's extend the leg out behind you. A little bend in the knee is fine. As you inhale, turn the knee out to the side of your mat. And as you exhale, turn the knee inward. So feel the thigh bone twisting in the hip socket. And you're just making that motion as much as you can without causing any distress in your hip socket, but just really loosening up into that space. Let's drop the right knee or right foot back down to the ground, and then let's move with the left leg. Inhale, extend. Exhale, knee to chest. 2 more breaths like that. And then extend the leg. Knee can be slightly bent, that's fine. Inhale, knee out to the side. Exhale, knee points back to the opposite side. So we're rolling the thigh bone out and back in towards the center place. One more time. And then let's come back to mountain pose. So for those of you that were on your hands and knees, take your time as you join us back into a standing position. I'm just going to turn sideways to show this. You're fine the way you are. As you inhale, draw the arms back. Exhale, lifting the arms up as much as is comfortable. There will be an opportunity to do down dog today. So if your arms only come to about here, then you might want to skip down dog. You want to be able to get your arms comfortably to the ears or back without any strain. And then you know down dog is a safe posture for you today. Let's inhale, take the arms out and up. Exhale, bring the arms back down to the side. Plug the arm bones into the sockets. Try that for 2 more breaths, just getting your range of motion. Hugging the arm bones into the shoulder sockets. And last little warm up for the shoulders. Let's take an inhale into cactus arms. Exhale, turning the palms under. Try to keep the arms a little bit forward of the shoulder so that you have a little less clicking and clunking in the shoulder joint. Wonderful. Let's come back into our table pose. So you might choose to use a chair again. Keep the knees and the elbows slightly unlocked. If you're on your knees on the ground, then your elbows are the only joints you need to worry about. Inhale, extend the spine. Exhale, stretch back into cat back. Take a couple more breaths like that. And then let's step the right foot forward, left leg back into lunge. Now you're welcome to have the knee on the floor. So if you were in table pose with knees down before, it might make sense just to keep the left knee on the ground. I'm using the chair, so obviously I'm taking this form. We're going to keep the left hand on the floor. You could be using a block under your hand if you like, or I'm going to keep my right hand on the chair. Left hand on the chair or on a block. And we're going to move with the right arm here. So inhale, swing the right arm forward. Exhale, swing the right arm back. Moving back and forth with the pace of your own breath. We'll do that one more time. Inhaling and exhaling. Let's switch sides. Dropping the right leg back into lunge. Keeping your left hand now on a block right hand now on a block or on the chair. Inhale, left arm swings forward. Exhale, it swings back. 2 more breaths like that. And then let's step back up into mountain pose. Notice how your mountain pose is changing. A little heat building maybe in the body, or is that just a hot flash for me? I'm not sure. Let's come to mountain pose and prepare for a little half moon stretch. So the feet can be slightly wider than they were originally, if that gives you a wider mountain feel. And I'm going to show this with the arms up in the air. No, you're welcome to keep the hands at the hips if that's a better place for you. Inhale, extend. Exhale, float to one side, creating a half moon shape with your body. Inhale to center and exhale to the other side. Moving back and forth with the pace of your own breath. Remember, there's the option to drop the arms to the waist if holding the arms up over your head is uncomfortable at all. Keep both of your feet well grounded into the earth. And start to feel your flexibility, your mobility, your ability to really bring up from the root. Okay, connect to the earth. Feel the
need or the desire that we have as a human being to rise up to something greater. Now, many of us possess this in different percentages. Some people seem to be very content to keep the status quo. They're not that interested in growth or change. I think those of us that are attracted to yoga tend to want to move along our path. We're willing to acknowledge our higher purpose. So let's acknowledge our desire, our want to develop this relationship with abundance. When you're ready, we'll inhale, come up onto the balls of the feet. Exhale, lower the heels back down. Now you might need the wall or a chair beside you for a little help with balance. The challenge for us is to try to keep the ankles in 2 straight lines, not to wobble too much. Now you're welcome to add some arm movement here. Inhale, reaching up for something higher. And then exhale, acknowledging the roots beneath our feet. Taking a couple more breaths like that. This is a remarkably challenging posture. Wonderful. Coming back to mountain pose, shaking out any limbs that feel like they're holding some resistance or some tension. And we're going to work into tree pose now. So you might decide that you would like your chair. One way you could use it is like this, so that it's right beside you for a little bit of confidence. You can also come to a wall. You can also keep one of your toes on the ground instead of lifting your foot right up off the floor. So what we want to really do is focus first on the fact that our feet are rooted. Maybe if there's a tree that is within your vision out a window, or a tree you have in your imagination that you admire, you could bring that to your mind and think about the rooting of the tree, and then the abundance as the tree blossoms and grows towards the sky. The courage it takes to be that little acorn tree. Now let's let all of our weight kind of slide into the right leg, grow the roots a little deeper under the right foot, and lighten your weight up off the left foot. So you can balance just on the left big toe if you want to. Gather the strength of your hips and wrap around the pelvis. We worked on this in our class in core yoga quite a bit yesterday. So really hugging the muscles in towards the pelvis here, and then taking the knee and pointing it out to the side. Now you can lift the foot, place it along the leg. Notice I didn't pull on my body with my hands. I didn't grab or force myself into an artificial shape. This shape is organic for me. It's sustainable for me. So yours might look different, probably should look different. But what we want to try to do is honor this rooted energy today, and then rise up, grow up from that. So find your tree pose, breathe abundantly in your tree pose. And for those of you who are taking the planets course, it's nice because we're looking at the tree of life every week as we do our meditations, as we study the effects of the universal energy on our bodies. And so it's kind of nice to honor this pose as maybe illustrating what the tree of life illustrates in our meditations. And then let's come back to mountain pose. Shake out your standing leg if it feels like it's overly tense. Move the chair to the other side of your body if you need that support. Turn around, face the other way if it's a wall you're using. Let all of the weight start to sink down now through the left leg into the earth. So the left leg is becoming deeply rooted into the earth. Wrap the muscles of the pelvis around so your pelvis stays stable. It doesn't, wiggle out to the side as we do this. And then lift up the weight off the right foot. You can balance on the right big toe. Turn the knee out to the side to the degree that's comfortable for your hip. Please don't create pain here. And then if it's possible, you can lift the foot and place it along the standing leg. The muscles of the hips continue to wrap around each other. Keep grounded, especially in the ball of the foot, on the big toe side, on the standing foot. You want to really keep that relationship with the ground. The outer heel and the ball of the foot under the big toe. And then grow some branches. Be abundant. Take up some space, breathe abundantly, and be a tree. And then we can release, come back into mountain pose. We'll turn to the side of the mat. Open your feet apart from each other and rotate the feet so that the toes are kind of facing the two corners of the mat here. Test bend your knees, and when your knees bend, we want them to come out over the direction that the toes are facing, but not beyond the ankle. So we don't want to bend our knee too much and weight bear. Puts a lot of strain on the joint that's unnecessary. Woo, there's my balance going on me today. So your feet may be rotated at different angles. They might not point directly to the corners. Going to work a little bit on Devyasana pose, goddess pose. Thinking about our inspiration from Lakshmi today, the abundance of energy. So lift and wiggle your toes here. Feel the feet connecting deep into the earth from which so much of our abundance flows. And feel your connection particularly through the outer heels and the inner side of the foot under the big toe, the ball of the foot under the big toe. So if we have both of those places really firmly affixed into the ground. Inhale, lifting up, and exhale, planting yourself towards the earth. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, gathering the abundance of the earth into the center of your body. So moving through that for a few more breaths. And then we might choose to hold goddess pose. I'm going to hold with my hands here at the heart in a little bit of a gesture of gratitude or reverence, maybe dipping the chin just a little bit towards the heart so that I draw awareness to the gifts that I'm gathering up through the feet from the earth and cooking or marinating here in the belly and the heart regions. Take another one of your breaths. Maybe you're using your Ujjayi breath today. Abundant breath. And then releasing, bringing the feet back to mountain pose, shaking your legs out if you feel like you're, kind of holding any tension in the legs. Turning back to the front of your mat. We come into warrior one here. So we're going to take, if we can, the right leg, drop it back. So you're in lunge briefly. You want to make sure your right foot is on the right half of the mat so that when you pivot on the foot and drop the heel to the ground, your hips are still square to the short edge of the mat. So the back foot might be at a 30-degree angle to the front foot or a 45-degree angle, something like that. But we're still wrapping the right hip bone forward and drawing the left thigh bone back. So we're square towards the short edge of the mat. Again, we want to be very connected to earth here. So look at the connection your feet are making, lifting and wiggling your toes and then gently setting them back down really helps to activate that energy connection to earth. Let's do a variation with our arms. This is called kind of sharing arms. So now that we've gathered all this abundance into the center point of the body, it's time to share your gifts. Gifts are only appreciated or useful when we share them. So let's take an inhale, bring the arms forward, open, and then exhale, bring the arms back together. Inhale, share, and exhale, withdraw. Trying that a couple more times. And then we can step forward into our mountain pose again. Before we come into warrior one on the other side, maybe I'll suggest that you think about something that you have, that you possess. It could be, a physical possession. It could be a talent you possess. It could be just your smile. And let's bring that to the forefront of your thoughts and think about sharing that gift, sharing that abundance with others, and just see what comes up for you. Let's step the left leg back. Pivot on the ball of the foot, ground your feet, just like we did on the other side. This time the left hip bone is wrapping forward and the right thigh bone's drawing back a little bit, allowing us to keep our low back open and spacious and really connecting to that earth energy here. We're thinking about sharing. Inhale. and exhale. One more breath. And we'll step into mountain pose. Taking a breath or two here to kind of let everything settle. And then let's step the right leg back. Same sort of posture with the feet and the legs as we had in Warrior One. And this version of Warrior is called Humble Warrior. And this is where you might find it beneficial to have a tie between your hands. If you've ever dislocated your shoulders, even when you were a kid, it's a good idea to take that caution. For those of you who have the range of motion in wrists, elbows, and shoulders, and it's no big deal, you're welcome to clasp the hands behind your back. So everybody should be thinking about healthy shoulders here and not pushing yourself past where your gifts take you. Inhale, extend and lengthen the spine. And as you exhale, bow forward in Humble Warrior. Inhale, come back up, lift the energy up to the heart, and then exhale, offer that heart energy back to the earth. So establishing a bi-directional flow of energy with your breath that allows you to interchange and recharge with the earth. One more breath. And then let's step forward into mountain pose, shaking out the arms or legs anywhere you feel tension accumulating. When you're ready, we can step back the left leg, setting ourselves up for the same pose. As you're getting set up, keeping in mind that we take these postures of humility and humbleness in yoga, this humble warrior posture, for example, because we're out there sharing our gifts. That's what we were born to do. But we need to not be attached to the results. We can't be greedy to get the results. We can't be greedy to get what comes back from sharing those gifts. So humbly we offer. If you are interlacing your fingers, do it the awkward way so it feels like you have an extra finger. Inhale and exhale. Humbly offering what we're able to, what we were born to offer, without attachment to the result. So this is like the anonymous donor that gives to the food bank or to the person that helps you cross the street and you don't even know their name and you can't even thank them. Not being attached to the results of our efforts. One more breath. And stepping into mountain pose. Okay, grab a hold of your tie. I think it'll probably come in handy here. Let's take our bodies, turn them so we're facing the long edge of the mat, wide stance. Initially, our feet are in a parallel position. We want to be a bit bold in this stance. We're coming into a variation on Warrior Two. The warrior poses in yoga are meant to fire up our energy, fire up your determination and your confidence. So in this case, we'll use the Lakshmi reference to help us fire up our attachment, our acknowledgement of our gifts, of our abundance. So we're moving from a place of strength here, of confidence in what we possess. Let's externally rotate the right thigh bone. We practiced that earlier. And then bend the knee so that the knee is facing in the same direction as the toes. And that's all pointing to the short edge of your mat. This leg can move forward a little bit or internally rotate a little bit if that makes this posture more comfortable. So we're going to hold this position with the legs. Last night we talked about drawing the 2 feet together isometrically, and that creates a real stability through the pelvis. So you can bring that into this as well. So strong, grounded, connected to earth energy through the bottom of the body. So what we want to do here is take the tie over the right shoulder. And then think about the right arm, turn it under. Remember, you were practicing that earlier. Reach up behind your back and take a hold of the scarf or the tie or whatever you've got. So the left elbow is pointing straight down to the ground, and the palm is facing out to the wall behind you. Make sure you keep the bend in the knee and the legs exactly as you have them. Inhale, reaching up through the right arm, bending the elbow and taking a hold of the tie behind the back. So your right elbow is pointing straight up while the left elbow is pointing straight down. Ensure you have lots of room in your neck to move around, that your arms are compressing through the neck. Now we want to have a firm grip on the tie, no slack in the tie or the scarf, but please don't feel like you're stretched beyond all snapping point in your shoulder joints. Make sure you have some wiggle room in the shoulder joints. And then we're going to come into a little bit of a variation here. As you inhale, tip away from the front knee, and exhale, rise back up. So it's almost like a sun warrior sort of variation. Keep the collarbones wide, smiling forward, moving deeply into the center of the body with your breath. Let's take one more breath here. And then releasing the tie, releasing out of the posture, bringing the feet into a parallel place. Maybe by this point in class, we're just past the halfway point. You're starting to feel that liquid confidence moving through your muscles and your bones. So we are of the earth. We are constrained by time and place. But as we practice yoga, we get a sense of something else beyond those constraints. An abundance of this, I'm going to call it spiritual energy. Let's turn our left thigh bone outward. Bend the knee so it's facing in the same direction as the toes, right out to the short edge of the mat. Adjust your right leg as necessary, and then move your tie to the left shoulder. Now we can create that stability, that connection to earth by isometrically drawing the feet together. They're glued into your sticky mat, so they're not really moving, but feel that wrapping around the pelvis, that strength, that earthiness in your body, that connection to the root of where we come from. And then we'll take the right arm now, tuck it around behind the back and lift it up. Palm is facing outward, and you've got a hold of the strap or the towel or whatever you're using as your prop. Inhale up through the left arm, bend the elbow, and again, take a hold of the tie. So make sure your neck has lots of room. Make sure your arms and shoulders have lots of wiggle room. The lower half of your body stays stable. Inhale, tip away from your bent knee, and then exhale, come back up. Really breathing into that left lung. Really celebrating the warrior qualities of you and thinking about where you're taking your strength, your confidence, your earthly gifts. And are you dedicating them to a higher purpose? Not just winning the lottery or getting six-pack abs, but what are you doing with your yoga, with your purpose? Let's take one more breath. And then releasing the tie, releasing. I'm going to come into a little bit of a forward fold as a counter pose. So you might want to kick the heels out just a little bit more. Go almost pigeon-toed with your legs. Soft bend in the knees. Inhale. As you exhale, bend forward from the hip crease. If your hands don't easily reach the floor, you can use blocks, or you could have your chair here to rest on. Basically, we want to just invert our bodies for a moment so that our hearts are higher than our heads. Our root is higher than the heart. Take a breath or two more. Then we'll take the hands to the hips. Inhale with a long spine all the way up. And exhale, step the feet together back into mountain pose. Taking a breath in and out. So a couple things. I want to come into side plank now. And I know side plank is a posture that can be quite challenging. So I want to show a couple different options here. One is to come close to a wall and use the wall. So you don't have to do the posture right now. You can just kind of find your posture in a moment. But you will come to the wall so that your elbow is still kind of bent, wrist more or less in line with the shoulder joint. And then just kind of lean into the wall, maintaining a very mountain pose-like alignment with your body, but just leaning into the wall and pushing back from the wall. So this is a way to start really building the strength in the side body. One thing I want you to think about focusing on is the bumper bones. When you come into any version of side plank you do today, think of the bumper bones coming closer together so that there's like a seatbelt or girdle-like set of muscles here. They're contracting, drawing the two halves of your body into the center line. And this particular movement, side plank, is very good for using these muscles. So this is one version of side plank that's quite helpful. And you can come into moving this side of the body with us if you want to. The other version of side plank that might be helpful to know is using the chair. So you can come with your hand on the chair. I like the fingers facing the back of the chair, and step your legs out a little bit, keeping the shoulder over top of the wrist. So this is a version of side plank that's sometimes interesting to try. Both of those don't involve weight bearing on the knees at all. So you could be progressing through these if you want to today, or you could just pick one and stick with one. Here's another option for coming into side plank. So like I said, just follow along with me if any of these things make sense. Taking your right leg back, putting the ball of the foot into the ground, pivoting on the ball of the foot so the whole foot comes to the ground, adjusting so that your arm is directly under the shoulder, and then opening up into side plank this way. So that's one option. And then, of course, there's the option that I'm going to demonstrate now. So it doesn't really matter which version of side plank you take. So the last version of side plank that I was going to talk about today was kind of a more traditional expression of the posture, where there's only the side of your foot and the hand touching the ground. So take any version of side plank you like. Take a couple deep breaths. Feel the bumper bones coming together at the front of your belly. Feel your strength. And then take a resting position. So that might be mountain pose, sitting in a chair, resting on your belly, child's pose. Any of those options, it works very, very well. And while you're just taking a break between sides, I offer this for your thought. Abundance is ours when our actions and thoughts align with our highest purpose. So it's fine to learn these postures, these hand balancing postures, these powerful postures, but what are you going to do with it? So if we go to yoga and we get in touch with our spiritual energy and then go back and do what we've always done, we won't find our change. We won't find our growth. So we need to use these powerful postures in yoga to really help us understand what our higher purpose is and gain the confidence that we need so that we can go out and align with our higher purpose. When our thoughts and deeds do not align with our higher purpose, life will be frustrating. We won't achieve what we wanted to achieve, and we'll miss out on that feeling of abundance. We can buy all the gold and all the fancy Lamborghinis we want, and we'll still feel the lack. So we need to align our thoughts and deeds with our higher purpose. Let's come to plank pose on the other side. let's think about that. Let's think about aligning our thoughts and deeds with our higher purpose. So this version of plank may not be in alignment with your higher purpose. So there's no point in doing it. Take one more breath. And then please find your resting pose. You can choose a different one than you used last time. Take a couple nice deep breaths. And then I was going to suggest that we come into downward facing dog. If you like the version of down dog that's traditionally done on the floor, that's great. If you prefer, I like the version of down dog here using a chair. In any case, we want to make sure that our fingers are well affixed to their support, and we're kind of pushing the chair or pushing the mat away with our fingers. Keep the knees softly bent and extend the spine. We're using this posture to lengthen the side body. And in doing so, we really open to the intuition and wisdom that we already possess. They are already part of our gifts. But yoga helps open the portal or introduce the translation that we need to understand what our true purpose might be. Take another breath in and out. Now, my next suggestion is to move down onto the belly. You can do that through a vinyasa if that's part of your practice. If being on your belly is uncomfortable, then I'm going to suggest you come and sit in a chair, and I'll briefly demonstrate the chair version of this. This is our cobra pose in the chair. So elbows are still bent, pulling back and down, breastbone still extended away. Good. Towards the ceiling. If you're coming with me into the more traditional expression of cobra pose, we're resting on our bellies. Hands can pull back beside the rib cage. Elbows pointed towards the ceiling. Let's draw the elbows down towards the feet and press the fronts of your hips, those bumper bones again, press them firmly into the ground. Inhale, drag your chest forward and up. Exhale, lower down. So if you're sitting in the chair, on the inhales, levitate the breastbone, and on the exhales, relax into your normal seat. Taking a couple more breaths here. Moving in and out of cobra pose. And the energy we're hoping to kind of stimulate here is a rising up energy. Almost like an emergence from the earth, a blossoming, a confidence that this is your time to blossom, your time to rise. Let's take one more breath. And then let's rest. So that might be sitting in your chair. It might be lying on your belly. Take this moment to re-coordinate, reintegrate. And then, if you're sitting on the chair, please come towards the ground with us. And if you're on your belly, gently roll over onto your back. You might want to hug your knees into your chest for a moment if you've rolled over onto your back. And then please join me in a seat. Legs are out front. I've got a fairly wide angle with my knees. And I've taken my hands behind the thighs to just give me a light bit of support. Move the flesh away for a second so you really feel the tips of your sitting bones and you're very aware of your connection to the earth through the sitting bones. Your sitting bones become like the feet were in all your standing poses now. That's where your connection to earth is. Let's find a long spine. So it's almost like you're doing cat-cow and you're doing the cow part of cat-cow. So almost an extension of the spine here. Become aware of the bumper bones and that girdle-like support muscle here in the middle of your body. So hug the right hip bone and left hip bone in towards the center line, kind of squeezing all in there. Stay right here. There's a lot of work going on. You can also look to exhale, lift up one leg, and inhale, lower back down. Exhale and inhale. So I'm using my arms to help with that movement, but you don't have to do that. What I really want to look at is my integrity of the spine here. I'm not rounding out, I'm not changing the position of the spine. Now the lower half of the body is the mobile part. Now, if that's going without any real sweat, any real effort for you, you need a little bit more to feel you're really invested here. Try lifting both feet at the same time and finding boat pose. Always an option to straighten the legs too, if that's in your practice. Keep the collarbones wide. Keep the spine long. Take one more nice deep breath. And then let's drop the feet. I'm going to demonstrate an upward facing table pose as the counter pose for that. If you don't care to weight bear on your hands to this degree, come down onto your back and do bridge pose. You'll get the same energetic boost from it. So I think most of us know bridge pose. If you're coming with me into upward facing table, place your hands on the floor. I like fingertips pointed in towards my bottom, but you can have your fingers out to the side or backwards if that works better. Bend the elbows, widen the collarbones, go into your extension of the spine almost. Press into your feet, and as you inhale, lift the hips and reach the knees forward. I like to keep the head looking forward. I don't like to take the risk of compressing the back of the neck here. Think about breathing deeply into the belly, really expanding into the belly energy. All of that work we did in boat pose now explodes out from there, building our confidence, building our abilities, connecting us to our gifts. So whether you're in bridge pose or upward facing table, let's take one more breath. And then lowering back down. And let's come right down onto the mat. We'll be staying down on the mat now for the rest of the practice. So if you wanted to bring socks or sweaters back into your life, the sweaty part of things are probably over now. I'm going to pad my spine. You may also want a strap for this. So coming back to earth. So I'm going to show this using a strap. You may not need one, but it's nice to know you have all these different options. As our lives unfold, our gifts shift and change. And so, for example, as we get older, some of our postures need to be adjusted because our bodies are changing their priorities. And that doesn't mean you can't do yoga or you're not good at yoga anymore. It just means it's time to explore different layers of your gifts. So let's take one knee, hug it in towards the chest. Then take the strap, if you're using it, around the ball of the foot and hold the strap in that same hand. So I'm using my left leg here, so my left arm's doing the work. I'm going to open up the foot so the foot creates a bit of a shelf up towards the ceiling. And I'm going to use the hand and leg action together to draw this knee down towards the floor beside my armpit. I'm in half happy baby pose. Try to keep your sacrum level with the ground, so we're not rolled all the way off to one side. And use your deep, full breath here. Take one more breath. And then we can release this leg. You can stretch it out for a minute if you like. Relax the hip. Relax the leg. Slowly bend the knee, stand the feet back on the floor. Take an inhale. As you exhale, hug the other knee back in. Tie around the ball of the foot. And bring the second leg into happy baby pose. Try to relax as much as you can. Recognize when you're pushing or over efforting, when you're too attached to the results of your practice. Let's take one more breath here. And release happy baby pose, stretching out the leg. Bending both knees, both feet on the floor. Step the feet so they're touching perhaps, and drop the knees out to the side. So we've come into reclined cobbler's pose here. You may find that this is not very comfortable for you. You can skip this pose altogether, or you could quickly tuck some pillows or blankets underneath the legs so that you don't overstretch. I only wanted to take a couple breaths here and just to draw your awareness to the pelvic floor area. So you can do that without your legs in this shape. When you inhale, can you feel a sense of opening or blossoming through the pelvic floor? And as you exhale, can you feel a sense of gathering in and up? So this isn't a gross muscular contraction. We're working with more subtle energies now, but can you feel your connection through the root chakra with the abundance of life? This is the area where life pulses in us. And there may be some cultural conditioning to resist that sensation, to dampen it, but for just a couple breaths, can we celebrate and be part of where life comes from, where life takes blossom, where life roots, and just really bring that energy to life in the pelvic floor. Just one more breath there. And then you might support your legs as you come back up, just resting for a breath with your back in a neutral position. And let's come into reclined twist. You can take any version that you feel comfortable with. I'm going to cue for one that involves bending one knee and keeping the other leg straight. So pretend you're going to do bridge pose. Lift your hips up and move them off to the side of your mat. I've moved to the right side of my mat. So now my body is almost doing half moon down here on the ground. Straighten out your left leg, draw your right knee in, and gently roll over towards the left hip. Make sure your right shoulder stays comfortably on the ground. I'm supporting my leg. I'm not pulling it to the ground. I'm just supporting the leg here. Head could roll a bit to the right if that feels really comfortable for your neck muscles. You could close your eyes and gently soften towards the earth. Taking one more breath. Support your leg as you come back up. Bring your feet to the ground and replant your hips back in the center of the mat. Take a moment to integrate. And then as if you're going to do bridge pose, you lift the hips up, move them to the left side of your mat. Stretch out the right leg, bring the left knee in, and roll to your side. So this is a very soft version of this pose. There isn't a lot of goal coming into this or end game being influenced here. This is an experience for my physical body that hopefully is leading me to my higher purpose. And all the postures in yoga, no matter how fancy they get, how physically intense they might get, they're not there so that you can post on Instagram or get a certain colored star beside your name. They're here for us to explore our physical reality so we can transcend it, so we can move to what we were really meant to do as human beings. Let's take one more breath here. And then I was thinking Shavasana. If there's something else you've got in mind, by all means. Otherwise, we can just stretch out, Supporting yourself with pillows or blankets as will keep you comfortable for a few moments. And here's where you can maybe really feel the shower of energy from Lakshmi. I often start my yoga class with my mind filled with, gotta do this, gotta get on that, this will never be right. I can't understand why the world is the way it is. And I come to the end of my yoga class and I feel abundance. I feel so connected to gifts. I feel so open to sharing those gifts. So I don't know if any of that is reflected in your experience, but let's take a few quiet moments to open to that. I wonder if that's waiting for you, just to open the door and allow. Let your body sink to the earth. Allow yourself to feel that support, that gift of abundance, and rest in that. Feel the generous gift of breath, just naturally oscillating through your body. And feel the gift of rest, the ability to let go, even for a brief period, and just float in your humanness for this moment in time. If you have a little bit more time to dedicate to your practice today, please stay right where you are. But if it's a busy day and it's time to move on to sharing your gifts, please be gentle as you deepen your breath. Wiggle fingers and toes. Roll over to your side. And come back to join me in a seated position. Let's celebrate our class by taking the hands together in a gesture of gratitude and reverence at the heart. Dipping the chin slightly towards the heart, acknowledging, the wisdom waiting for us there. And let's celebrate all of this work with the sacred sound of Om. I'm inhaling now. Namaste. So I'd love to hear how y'all are doing. I've stopped